Hello, and welcome to Voices from the Village. I'm Keith Gudger, your host, and tonight our topic is, what is the future for community television? I'm the Vice Chair of Community Television, and with me tonight I have Lynn Miller, the Interim Executive Director for Community Television, and Jennifer Pittman, another member-elected board member of Community TV. When we talk about the future of community television, the main issue that we're dealing with is called DVCA. This act, passed by the state of California in 2006, will severely restrict what community TV can do with the funds we receive from cable subscribers in Santa Cruz County. The constraints this act puts on us include the fact that now the money can only be spent on facilities and equipment. This means that no salaries can be paid from this money. And if you can imagine a nonprofit operating with no salaries, then that's what community TV is facing. We're going to have to look at what we can do with only facilities and equipment, and if there are ways we can use those facilities to generate income to offset our other expenses. Community television has been part of this community since the end of 1994. That's over 17 years. And the community TV has contributed greatly to this community in many ways. Just think of all the nonprofits and community organizations that can't get their message out or can't be seen if we don't have something like community television. Another important factor, or another important thing that community TV does is broadcast the government meetings to everyone in the county who has a cable subscription. And now, with the internet, anyone who has an internet connection. Those government meetings include the County Board of Supervisors, the City of Santa Cruz City Council, the Metropolitan Transit District, and Capitola and Watsonville. All the cities in Santa Cruz get broadcast over our channels. So what does this mean for community TV to not have those funds? Well, we're afraid of what it means. We're afraid it may mean quite a restriction in the services we provide to this county. And we'd like to see that not happen. So that's what the board has been working on, trying to determine a way for us to move forward and to continue to provide the many services, such as this program you're watching tonight, can continue for the citizenry of Santa Cruz County. So I'd like to open the questions up here. And first, I would like to stop talking for a moment and have Lynn talk a little bit about what he sees as the issues facing community TV with this budget crisis. Now, a little background on Lynn. He just stepped into this position July 1st, so he's only had about 6 weeks to get his feet wet and find out what's going on. So in some ways, that means that he hasn't had a chance to find out everything that's happening with community TV. But I also think it means that he's a really good person to give you an overview of the situation we face, because he's had to very quickly look at what's available and figure out what he can do. So Lynn, can you talk a little bit about that for us, please?
I certainly can. We looked at a budget this fiscal year that gave us 15% less than we had in the prior year. I think the county was trying to give us a message that in years to come, particularly in the fiscal year 2014-15, the funds will be restricted. And I want to be real clear, that doesn't mean the funds will become less, but they'll be restricted. There's going to be two silos, one that DFCA pays for, which is facilities, maintenance, and capitalization, and then the silo that CTV has to deal with, which is the salary and benefits. Currently, our budget's approximately $650,000. Of that $650,000, close to $500,000 of that is salary and benefits. If you look at that scenario alone, CTV will have to find a way to shore up salaries and benefits in year 2014-15. That can't start on day one, July 1st of 2014. That is what we're working on now, to try to find ways to compensate for that lack of funding. I guess on the good side of that is there'll be more money for facilities and equipment, but you still have to have people to operate that equipment. And in terms of the county meetings, in terms of the way in which we produce, the way in which we edit, those things will all be things that we have to look at in terms of how we make that work in 2014-15. So my answer to that is that's a fair amount of money to be looking at in terms. Now, Can we reduce some of that through DIVCA? I believe we can, and I believe the county will look at ways we can do that. So I think the overall cost factor, having spent time with this over the weekend, would be more like about $340,000 that CTV has to do with working some magic in the budget. But it's problematic. Most nonprofits that I know and have worked with have always had a portion of their budget that's always been one that's around marketing, one around donations, or reaching out to the community, public support. In all fairness to CTV, that hasn't been that necessary. I think the donations, generally speaking, over the years have been about $10,000 to $12,000 a year. That has to creep up and creep up very quickly. I also think that as we look toward year 2014-15, that we'll be looking at a whole marketing aspect of this that allows us to find ways to bring in money with others in the community. And then finally, I think another answer to this is to use every bit of technology we can possibly get in the years that we have to work toward this, to draw down technology that helps us better edit, and we've got really good editors and producers, but finding ways to not have staff so available for that kind of thing so they can actually focus on the things they like to focus on. So I think those are some of the answers that I've been looking at in terms of how we deal with this. I find it interesting because I can't recall any agency I've ever worked with that has had to face this kind of a change. I've seen reductions. I've worked with the county. I know what reductions are like. But nobody has ever had to ramp up at the kind of money that we're talking about and do it in such a quick manner, albeit that we have known since 2006 this was coming.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. So, Jennifer, Lynn just talked a little bit about marketing, and in the last almost year, you've been heading up our marketing committee. Can you talk a little bit about the marketing challenges that community TV faces?
Yeah. As the marketing task force that was set up about a year ago, we've tried to figure out what our story is going to be. Mm-hmm. What is the community television story, and what is our narrative, and what are our partnerships with the community, and how we can express those better, and how we can get people to understand how important those are to all of the different entities that we work with the government, with like you mentioned, I think there's over 600 nonprofits that we've worked with education, and we've tried to do a better job of letting people know how we've actually had an impact. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stories that come out of the actual classes or the programs that people have. We've worked with art communities and culture communities and hope services, and we've had an impact. We've helped increase that message, double the power. People can learn how to use the facilities, but they can also post them on their websites. When they do their videos, they can we can be the content providers, mm-hmm. as well as the trainers. And so we've talked a lot about, like, what is that narrative? What kind of a media hub do we want to be in the future? So it's an exciting time as we've kind of learned how to cultivate our own stories within.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me some examples of what you mean by media hub?
We want to be more than just a place where you create television shows. We want to be able to be a place where business can come and utilize our services, and nonprofits can come and utilize our services, and the education community, we can want to be able to create supportive careers, media careers. And so we can't call ourselves just a television broadcast organization, because we do much more than that. Our outreach is much greater than that. So now that we're on the internet, now that we're on Facebook, and we're in different channels of media as well.
Okay. One of the things that we've done is we've done a lot of work with nonprofits over the years. And a lot of the work we've done with nonprofits, as you mentioned, we've done completely free because we had the budget to be able to help nonprofits. And that's an unfortunate consequence as we lose our money for salaries and nice things, is that we lose the ability to help nonprofits. I know, Lynn, you've been addressing that some. But before we get in there, I was wondering if we could run one of those testimonials that for community television. Could we run one of those now, Ken? Would that be all right?
I'm Kimberly Lacrosse, and I work at the United Way of Santa Cruz County as a community organizer. And we've partnered and worked with community television many, many times over the last 5 years. The United Way and our collaborative Go for Health worked on a project with community television. Community television helped us from the very beginning to the very end in the planning, the implementing of the forum, and had a great set of people helping us to make sure that the sound was good and that the video was good, and that all of our bases were covered. It went so smoothly, and it's helped us get funding. It has helped us to communicate better with leadership in the community. It's helped the youth to share their message with other youth. I mean, I could go on and on. It's been very, very helpful. I think we all have to think about how is it that we can support community television, because it means different things to each of us. So maybe when we stop and think about what will our community be like without community television, we can find a way to think, what can we do? I can't imagine our community without community television. It just creates, it really is community. Everybody benefits and everybody wins.
So that was a testimonial by Kimberly Lacrosse from United Way, talking about the ways we've helped many different programs that United Way runs in our community. And those are the kind of things that have made us an important part of this community that is going to be hard for us to continue to do. So one of the ways we're looking at this, addressing these issues is potentially with grants. And I'm hoping Lynn can address that a little bit.
Well, it does give opportunity and does give rise for a number of grants that I've been running around in my mind. And one is specifically our nonprofits. They often live by donation. And we have been there, we've been available to help them, but maybe under these circumstances, greater alliances with our nonprofit friends to work out mutual grants that does two things. One's help offset CTV's cost of doing business, but at the same time continue to provide for them the opportunity to be out in the community and get their message out. So I think there are ways to do this, particularly in our areas of our county that are less available to media. I think it makes perfect sense. Grants in general, I think they're extremely important. We're now working with an Irvine grant that the staff got before I got here, but it's a wonderful grant that integrates young people from our Watsonville community into both CTV here and a program we're running in Watsonville. Those kind of grants, I think, are really responsible grants. I think some of our local granting agencies would also like to look at how they might help community TV continue to survive in these times of economic turndown, if you will. And I mean, again, the two silos that we're working with. So I think that grants are going to be a very strong part of how we survive and what we look at in terms of what we can put back into the community that makes our community even stronger out through this kind of a situation. Mm-hmm. So I think the grants are going to be a very big part of what we do.
Okay. So how can we do a better job of generating grants? What ideas do you have about doing that?
Well, I think we have to look at our total community, look to see where, as an example, and I don't know how factual this is, but we're coming into a time when everybody's paying attention to medicine. They want to know what's going to happen to Medicare. They want to know what's going to happen at the state level, at Medi-Cal. I think there's a way that we could work with our medical community to talk about getting prevention services out there. I don't think that's irresponsible to start looking at ways that we might get the message out, and there may be funds from even some of those organizations to do that. Preventative medicine isn't just going in the office and seeing a doctor or spending time with a nurse, but it's that constant looping of information to the general community. If I'm a diabetic, I might very well turn on community TV and find something I can use to help me with my diabetes, but if it's not there on community TV, And we do some of that work already, but I think that with particularly with the advent of a change in the way in which we're approaching medicine in the next several years, I think it's a window of opportunity as one example. There might be other examples out there. That's the one that I seem to focus on. So I think that we just have to look for those golden opportunities that puts us not only in terms of giving us a better financial foothold, but rather do it in a way that encompasses and embraces our entire community. It could be a win-win, and that's how I see it.
Is there any possibility of the Affordable Care Act affecting that? I mean, is there likely to be any money specifically earmarked for preventive medicine?
Well, there is earmarked money for prevention, and that's part, if it continues the way it's going. So it would make perfect sense for us to have some alliances with the medical community around getting those prevention information out to people. I mean, the two strongest ones that strike me as concerns of our community are obesity, particularly childhood obesity, and diabetes. So I think I think that we do have, I think there will be a role, and I think there will be money for that sort of thing. And it might be a great segue in terms of medicine to start to look at what something like community TV could offer for our community. Okay. I could see a scenario perhaps with one of the medical groups where a doctor would spend time on CTV talking about a very specific issue. It could be heart problems, it could be, again, obesity or diabetes. But I think there are opportunities out there. I just think we have to think a little bit outside the box. And it's been a comfortable situation since there's been funding available. But now it calls for greater acuity in terms of the way in which we look at this. So that's one idea I have. And I'm sure it's one of many that people will come up with.
Yeah, that's great.
And at our retreat in March, we talked about several possible partnerships. One of them was healthcare, one of them was business, one of them was environmental issues. And I mean, there's so many options that we could follow up on if we can just find like where the most lucrative grants are, where the most community service could be in a lot of different things, in environment, in healthcare, education. We also talked about on the retreat extensively, and so there seems like there's lots of options.
What about fundraising? In terms of grants, and that beyond grants, in terms of contributions and things like that.
Fundraising is an important way to raise money. It's a challenging way, I think, unless we have a big production that we really have put a lot of energy into, which probably will not happen with just a small, tiny staff that we have. We need to have a lot of volunteers to get our partnerships in. Really linked up, I think. But we do our bowl-a-thon. We did our bowl-a-thon for our last year. We did the dinner beforehand. We've raised, and those I think both raised, or the last one raised about 6,000 maybe, 6,000, 7,000 I think. And so that was successful, and we hope to have another more successful one. I think what kind of partnerships we want to have, we've been focusing on more than just fundraisers. There's been some member-suggested fundraisers as well, working in the holiday community events and things that we've thought about. A lot of it is getting the momentum, the volunteers organized, the volunteers excited. We need that kind of energy. We have a small membership of just about 300, so if we don't get a lot of volunteers involved, we're going to be struggling. And so I think that's part of it. Other fundraising, what else have we talked about at the retreat? Mostly we talked about grants, and then there was the education. I don't know if you're going to go into the educational ideas.
Well, what I wanted to ask you was, when you try and do fundraising, you really need that story that goes out and touches people and makes them want to give to the organization. And you've worked on that some on the marketing committee. Can you talk a little bit about what the story is?
The story is that we are the place to go for local news. We are local information, local stories, local victories in the community, and that really that we are the ones who kind of watch out for each other. We're the ones that cover the local government. Without there is no other government coverage like that we can offer. So I think that's our main thing, that's our energy, that's our hope. Our local television stations are not even based locally in Santa Cruz County. So
Right.
it makes a real big difference that we are here, and that's I think of our biggest, most important, those are our roots, that community.
And I know several people have said to me, oh, where does community TV fit in the 21st century with YouTube and Vimeo and all that? And one of the arguments that I think makes so much sense is YouTube is still owned by Google and Vimeo by the networks or whoever. Community TV is the community, and there's no corporation, there's nobody telling us what we have to put on our channels. And whatever anyone submits, as long as it's legal, will get played back on our channels. Just bring it in the front door, fill out a form, and it goes on the air. And there's no filter. And sometimes that's a two-edged sword. People see what's on community television and they say, oh my goodness, why is that on TV? But I think I think Santa Cruz is a tolerant community and is a community that understands that we have to see all different sides of an issue, even if we don't agree with it. And that's one thing that community TV always provides. If it's submitted to us, it goes on the air. And we're not corporate.
We're definitely not corporate.
John is telling me that we have a phone call.
No, now.
Oh, okay, no, we don't. But we would like to have your phone calls. So this is a call-in program, and we're live tonight, August 26th, and we are taking phone calls. Our number is 831-425-8844. So if you would like to talk to any of us or ask a question about community television, please call in, and we'll go back to the questions. So
one comment I wanted to make,
yes.
and I apologize, probably should have spoken sooner, but I think another partner in this is our government agencies.
Mm-hmm.
I think we ought to really think of them in terms of how they may step up. I've worked in the nonprofit world in addition to working for the county, and I know what the county can do when they get actively engaged in working with nonprofits. They believe in them. They think they serve their community in a very strong way. So I think the jurisdictions and the county are somebody we need to look as a partner in terms of how we face the future. Not that they're going to open their pocketbook, but they also have ways for us to seek grants, or they may be aware of other ways to do seeking of funds in other ways. And it's interesting, I've only been here for a very short period of time, but those 300 members you make reference to, they may be small, but they're mighty. I just love the creativity and the enthusiasm, the commitment, and I suspect some of them have some really good ideas on how we can do some fundraising that of a magnitude that really would make a difference. And so it'd be interesting to see what happens with that over the next several months and years.
They become very vocal, and especially during this time of challenge and change, and it's been exciting to have this room filled with people as they talk about what's happened and what they could do and what might happen if we all pull together. So I think that's a very optimistic thing about what's happened.
So that brings up a good point. We can talk about the membership. Currently, community television has towards 300 members. And what that means is community television is a member-run organization, nonprofit, as opposed to a standard nonprofit where the board more or less selects the board. The Board of Community Television has 11 members, 4 of which are appointed by government entities, and 4 are elected by the current members. And then there are 3 others that are appointed. But right now, community television is in an election process that has to deal with an issue regarding removing the members from the bylaws. Can you talk about that a little bit, Lynn?
I'll certainly try. This is about the time I came in, was around this issue. And the issue is that the board has to move quickly and has to move responsibly to get to a place with the county where we do not go into what I call a default, where the county will put out a request for proposal and then open it wide open. We really want to focus on a way to work with the county and the jurisdictions to keep CTV whole to the degree that it doesn't go away. waiting for the membership to kind of act as a group on things that might be outside the bylaws in terms of dealing with the county, I think has been problematic. It's an unusual relationship to have a membership this large, a board of directors that are somewhat hamstrung with the bylaws. So I think the request to have the trust level, I hope, is there with the board to give them the allowances around the bylaws to make this work. And I would really encourage members to vote. It's vitally important. We end the voting August 31st, and it's my hope that we get the votes that we need to move forward.
Okay.
And I think the county's looking at it. The county is looking to see us make some decisions that don't come in and say, can you continue this for another couple months while we work on it? I think they really are looking for a very direct plan on transition, regardless of what happens. We have to be that responsible when we show up on October 23rd to the Board of Supervisors.
So what exactly will happen if the vote that's before the members now passes? How would that affect our ability to be?
Well, I think the board then moves forward to make a decision on what options are available for the board to look at in terms of the next generation of CTV. I think that it's no secret there are a couple of options on the table. One has been, and it went to the board in June, a discussion around a merger. And that would still be on the table. And then what would that look like in the year 14, 15? And how do you get there between now and 14, 15? The other would be more of a, I want to be cautious how I say this, it would be CTV, but in a new format. It would have to be taking into consideration the cost factors that we would have to approach, how we would work with technology, how we'd work with grants. Both are doable. They're both a little scary. It's not the way community TV is operated. So I do think there are options there, but those options can't be acted on unless we get to a place where a few people can make the decision and get to the board.
But then the other side of it is what happens if the vote doesn't pass? I mean, then where are we now?
I don't want to think about it because here's the answer to that. We're going to go back to the board and say the membership says that they don't want the bylaws to be set aside. They want to keep. Well, then we go to the board and tell the board that, and the board will probably put it out to RFP. That's kind of my impression. It's not like the board of supervisors wants to do anything like this. But I think they're at a place where they want to give direction and want us to be able to survive, and they don't see this off and on again kind of relationship working. We have to make some decisions that are responsible in light of, and keeping in mind the county didn't create this, but in light of DFCA, it doesn't appear to me that it's going to change in the near future. It might at some later date, but we have to live with what we know. And what we know is that train's coming, and it's coming July 14th, and we ought not be waiting until July 14th. We really ought to be responsible, look at this board, our board, and look at the Board of Supervisors and say we do have a plan, and we do have a plan that actually will start in fiscal year 13, 14 in anticipation of this change in financing. That's my reaction to it.
Because it seems to me if the vote doesn't pass, then we're just in a wait mode. Then what do? Then we can't, because we can't move forward on making decisions without getting 51% of the vote. So then what? I mean, then whatever our decisions are, we have to bring them back to the board or back to the membership and that's another.
That's not doable.
That's not doable.
That's just not doable. I guess I want to react a little bit. I wasn't sure if you meant if the membership voted not to allow the board to move forward. Is that what was it you said?
If the members vote against, if they decide either by not voting at all or by voting against the proposal to hand over the reins to the board, then I just wonder what our next step will be. Then I think we're looking at the idea of what we've already been talking about, fundraising, partnerships, but then we have that looming sense of the RFP coming from the county.
Yeah, I think that looming, I don't think the county really wants to do an RFP. I don't think that's, I mean, they've talked about it, but I think they would like to have us help them avoid that. And that's what we hope to do. If we don't get the number of votes needed, that's a different situation than if the members vote against the board working outside the current bylaws. So in other words, if the members vote that way, then that's a very different situation. If we don't get the votes at all, the amount of votes we need in order to determine that it's a majority have made a decision one way or the other, that's a scenario that allows us to have some legal discussion from our attorney about where we go from there. So to be clear, there are two different issues for me.
Do we know how many votes we've gotten in so far?
As of Friday, we had 120 votes.
120, and we need 151 almost, or 100.
Almost 200 votes to make it, to get where we need to be.
So we're still about 80 votes short.
We hear from people all the time, and they're coming in.
And I'd like to come back to this issue, but right now we have a phone call of Ken in Aptos. Ken, are you there?
Oh, good. Yes, I'm here. And I actually had a small point.
Yes, Ken.
I actually have a point to make about, Keith, you mentioned a few minutes ago about competing with YouTube online. And so many of the viewers or potential viewers for community TV do not have cable. So a large part of the same viewers that should be watching community TV have not been able to in the recent past because it's not available except for cable. And now, since the station broadcasts shows online, it's very, very simple to talk about competing with YouTube. YouTube is all pre-recorded videos. But if people just go to communitytv.org, that's very simple, www.communitytv.org, and you can choose between the three stations and watch actual live local coverage online. And you can do that if you're in France on vacation, or if you're lucky enough to be in South America or wherever. If you have friends all around the world and they want to keep up on what's going on in Santa Cruz, they can just go to www.communitytv and pick one of the three stations. And if they're watching right now, hello to New Zealand. So I just thought I'd throw that out there, that the internet has really expanded the viewing audience of community TV. So that's my thought, and I just thought I'd say hi, and thanks, you guys are doing a great job, and I love the show, and I'm going to tell all my friends to watch. Okay, bye.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Yes, and that's true. We're live right now, and lots of live programs stream from community TV on the internet, and lots of our recorded programs too. What I wanted to come back to is we've tossed around the term RFP, and I don't think we've defined that for the audience, so I'd like to mention what that is. Because it's not just that it stands for Request for Proposal. There's a whole nother meaning with that at the county level, what that means. Could you address that, Ken?
Sure.
Lynn, sorry.
The request for proposal that the county would implement, if necessary, would be out to whoever would like to take a look at how they might conduct what now CTV does to some degree. Mm-hmm. And it's an arduous process. From a county's point of view, it's a very arduous process to put an RFP together. You've got to really ratchet down every detail you want in an RFP, and then when it goes out, people open the RFP and they go, "Oh my gosh, do I really want to do this?" And then what happens with RFPs, my experience, because I used to do them more frequently when I was with the Human Resources Agency, but later a little bit with child support, is that you get a lot of responses back, but they don't meet the criteria. They don't have the liability insurance, they don't have the nonprofit status, they don't have the requirements that are specific in RFP. So when one says RFP, it sounds like one thing. When one has to do it, either at the county level or whoever is putting together an RFP, it's an arduous project. I've done them. They're no fun. On the other end, when you're responding to an arduous RFP, that ain't much fun either. So the avoidance here would be to try to make sure that CTV is in a position where the county says, look, we don't believe an RFP is necessary. We believe CTV can get there, and the way in which we get there is going to be very important. The way in which we approach the Board of Supervisors on October 23rd has to show a great deal of thought has gone into it, and what we put on the table has to be clear enough to them that says that over the next few months, from January to July of 2013, we're going to be doing the following. And then whatever transition takes place, we will keep you posted in April of 2012 or 2013, where we're going in the new budget year. I think that's the kinds of things the county is going to look for. Do they question the competence of CTV? I'm not sure they do. I don't think they want to do an RFP, but they will. I mean, they will if we come to them with something less than something fairly sterling. Which is why my hair is gray and going away.
Right, so it's, right now, community television operates under a contract to the county and city of Santa Cruz. They combine. And that contract actually expires July 1st of 2013. Right. It's interesting, that's been introduced a sort of strange timing for us in that July 1st, 2013, the contract officially expires. And then exactly 1 year later, July 1st, 2014, the DIVCA rules take effect. So that means that we've got to worry about getting ready for next July 1st and ready for the July 1st after that, and then maybe even another year. I think the county is looking at 3 years, potentially.
3 years with a 1 year add-on, if that's the way it's written. That's the way the RFP would be written.
Okay.
3 years with a 1 year extension. So basically it's 4 years. If you're doing really good in the 3 years, if it goes to an RFP and somebody gets the RFP, if they're doing really well in 3 years, there's an extension of 1 year. Okay. It's actually a 4-year contract. Yeah. And unless you're really messing up, and then it's not.
And one of the things that makes it complicated is the budget for the first year is vastly different than the budget for the following years.
That's correct.
Because of the DIVCA restriction. It seems to me it's really unfortunate timing that right in the middle of getting ready for 2014, you also have to deal with the end of that contract.
The contract came due. This is how they're looking at it.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was a potential merger. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I can talk about what I know about it.
Okay.
And I have met with the group that we had been talking about and the board had been talking about prior to my getting here was CMAP. And they currently are operating out of South Santa Clara County and San Benito County, Gilroy, San Benito County, and possibly are having some conversations to moderate. I'm not real clear about that. My meetings with them have talked about economies of scale. What would that mean for Santa Cruz County? How could we work with them? What kinds of things we could do? And so if you look at the budget, if you just look at numbers, there would be a reduction in the cost of running CTV under that kind of scenario. What would we lose? We really don't know, but in my conversation, I made it clear there's some things that have to stay whole. The county has made it clear that some things have to stay whole. So a merger would be our board, their board, and then perhaps a memorandum of understanding that talks about how those two boards continue to operate. So that Santa Cruz has that funding mechanism, has the board that keeps it local. But it is economies of scale. That's what around the country people are looking for. It's not unusual for fire departments to merge. It's not uncommon. Child support. We merged Santa Cruz County with San Benito County. It's how you do it and how you keep the community feel going that's really important. So it's not just a matter of signing a couple contracts and agreeing to a merger. It's much bigger than that. And I would suspect that if that's where the board goes, that this next 6 months has to really be paying attention to what those bylaws look like for both boards, what those contracts might look like with the staff, and what the MOUs might look like. There's a lot to do. And it requires some attention from the legal side to make sure that whatever we agree on keeps CTV whole in the way in which it responds to the community.
I want to mention that CMAP stands for the Community Media Access Partnership, and it's based, like you said, out of Gilroy. Is that? And
yeah, it's got Gilroy and San Benito.
Okay. All right. What are some ways in which we could possibly save money, either with or without a merger? I mean, what kind of things we're doing now that you see?
Well, as you recall, this fiscal year we already did a 15% reduction. That was based on the county of Santa Cruz saying that other departments in the county were facing a 15% reduction. So we did a 15% reduction. What that meant for community TV was some reduction of staff. It left our front lobby completely open, nobody greeting people coming through the door. It caused us to close down Monday and Tuesdays, so that we're open other times, but Monday and Tuesdays are closed for the members.
And we still meet our 40-hour commitment to the
We still
county.
meet our 40-hour commitment, but we just aren't open to the degree we had been before. So we've already had that scale of reduction. Then how do you look at it in the future, which is even a greater one? And I think that speaks to something the board talks about in their intention for an RFP, is that seeking greater engagement from our nonprofit community and our other entities in the community to see if we can find groups of people that can help us when we need that kind of help. Also in terms of our marketing, finding people out there that can help us with our marketing and that had experience with marketing. I think another sector that we don't pay much attention to, I do recognize before I say that this community has always been impacted by the amount of nonprofits in this community. Everybody's looking for a way to continue. And I think every nonprofit I've worked with in the county is one that has tremendously direct services to the community. CTV is no different than that. But I do think that our business community is not something we should say, well, gee, they're already impacted. Find ways that we might work with them to both enhance where they are and what they're doing and get their message out, at the same time supporting CTV and what we're trying to do. So I think that they're on the getting side, reaching out, and I think there's more we can do. I don't see ratcheting down a whole lot more. I think that there are some salary and benefits that we can look at in the 2013-14 that would help us. So there are things there. I mean, people do this. The county's been doing it for years now because of the turn down in the economy. Ours is a little different because our money isn't going to be less. It's just how we spend it that's going to be the problem.
Restrictions.
And we will have a palatial facility. We just have to make sure that we have the proper amount of staffing to make sure it works and works well for the community. And it's got a great membership and a great group of volunteers. So I want to say that up front. It's got a spirit.
Okay. We have a call from Joe in Watsonville. Are you there, Joe? Or did we lose Joe? No? Okay. Well, if Joe, if you hung up, give us a call back and we'll patch you in the next chance we get. We talked a little bit there about marketing and bringing more in. And one of the biggest employers in this county, well, besides the university, is tourism. And I'm wondering, Jennifer, and looking at the marketing, have you thought of any ways in which we could interact with our community to maybe help the tourism side and also maybe get some money from the people that are depending on tourists?
We've thought more about the education, and let's see, with the tourism, we have thought about, I mean, how well can we tell our stories and the stories that are uniquely Santa Cruz, and from the arts to the health to the environment to the education. And
you know, sometimes I think that the people outside our county don't appreciate the fabulous arts and creativity that is this county. And those of us that live here just love every second of it, but I sometimes worry that the people outside don't appreciate it.
I think we've done successful partnerships with a lot of the art groups, and we'd like to do more.
Yeah.
That would be a natural Meet in Santa Cruz kind of an affiliation, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Culture in general. I mean, we are so filled with all sorts of creative things. I think also the education that we can offer is something that we've talked about a lot in the marketing committee about, and that's part of us being a media hub, is how much can we teach. Right now our classes are geared primarily for use at the station, and would we want to establish some kind of an educational media hub as well? And that might be might fit a regional need that's not necessarily being fed at the local, just with what we have now. So that might be an opportunity as well.
Can you give me any more detail on that, about how that might work?
Well, there's a lot of educational communities that are strapped for funds and aren't able to provide the kind of education that we can provide with the digital technology that we have here. And if we were to create some kind of certificate programs or adult educational programs where we could affiliate with different vocational programs or high school programs, that might be an opportunity to get people more familiar with the state-of-the-art equipment and enhance their career path, and also bring in funds that might help the organization thrive, ideally.
And with facilities and equipment, basically a very large budget for facilities and equipment.
Yeah, we've thought about that, partnerships
Yeah.
at different places in the community. Would we want to be able to rent out studio space and provide opportunities for business to get their technology needs met?
Right. You know, I don't know if all the viewers appreciate that we're sitting here right now in the studio of community television. And what does that mean? We're sitting in a large room with 3 camera operators, a person on audio, a person on graphics, a person directing. We're talking about a lot of volunteers. There are other ways with technology to have a different kind of studio that doesn't require so many people. And that might enable us to serve a larger community, because one of the problems, of course, with any volunteer-led organization is getting volunteers to help out. And I think we have one of those volunteers at the mic right now. Could we get John on the...
Yes, hello. I'm John. I am a volunteer. I've been here for about 7.5, maybe 8 years, and I've seen a lot here. You know, there's one thing I was just wondering. We're a community access TV station, and then so we should start acting like we could do more PSAs, I think. Get involved with the hospital, get involved with the, and talk to them and get often, just because they don't want it now. They have to think about it, they got to go through their boards and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we should get more involved with the community, do a lot more PSAs. That will give us our new volunteers and our new people work, and they would be more interested in what goes on here, maybe. So, I mean, that's my idea.
Okay, thank you, John. And I want to let everyone know that PSA means a public service announcement. So, thanks, John.
How often do we do the public service announcement days? Don't we do that?
We have them once a month, and it goes up and down, the number of people that want to do it. But for a very modest fee, it's $25. We will put together a minute-long public service announcement on you know, what the nonprofits are pushing. It can be current events, it can be long-term. Tomorrow, we're actually doing one for the League of Women Voters, and it's strictly aimed at getting the vote out. And with November coming up, I think that's something that we all think is a good idea, getting people registered to vote and voting. And that's the kind of thing community TV does for the community, is help connect the community with each other and with the nation, in this case, if you're registering to vote for the national elections.
We've got another volunteer there.
Oh, and we have another volunteer at the microphone.
I'm Charlie Phillips. I've been associated with community TV since '98. And I'm happy to be here, know that we have been able to express our thoughts and our opinions. And we've been, I think we have a very strong, we've discussed issues from homelessness to immigration, to every facet of our pain and our sorrows and our joys here. We are a loving organization. We often have our differences, but we come through with charm. And we rule out the oligarchies in the world. We're often to bring people to conscious decisions, and we're here to make people think and have thought. And thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
So that's, I mean, Charlie brings up a good point, and that's, we're here to help people communicate with each other. And that's what community TV is, community communication. And we were just discussing education as well. And do you have any ideas on that, Lynn, that you can express?
Well, we're doing some. We're working with the high schools in Watsonville. I think we have a golden opportunity to do it. We have a mobile unit that we don't use fully, that we should be using fully, and I think education is exactly where we can be using it. We'll be using it as part of our Irvine grant down in South County, and I would like to see us find ways to work with schools to further enhance children and youth in their home experience, or at least out in the field experience. So I think it's a really good segue. It's a golden opportunity. They have been hit. I particularly liked it when you said adult education. As you know, over the last several years, particularly in Watsonville and the Pajaro Valley District, adult education has been hit severely. And I think it's really important then to find ways, because it's a population that still wants and wants to relish the opportunity of education. Perhaps that's a really good way to work with that district in terms of how we get the information out and how we might work with them to get to people who otherwise would not get the opportunity under the restrictions of the more recent economic downturn. It won't be a lot different for our elementary and high schools either. They're experiencing the same things, particularly when you talk about art. Art's going to be one less thing in schools. This would be a great way to keep kids engaged and involved in art. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Sometimes out of grief, you find ways to start to get to feeling better, and one way may be CTV in terms of how we do that outreach.
I agree.
Yeah, and art and culture, and there's music also. I mean, it's amazing how many music shows there are on our channels, and they just keep coming. And if you talk to the producers of the music shows, you find that they have no trouble finding a band. If suddenly there's a band that canceled for the live Friday night show, they can put something on Craigslist, or even go out on Pacific Avenue and have a band in here in no time. And it's amazing. I've done that. I've gone on Pacific Avenue and asked buskers, would you like to come be on television tonight? And had them come in and have them give amazing performances. And that just shows you what talent there is in this community and how important it is to showcase that so that people can appreciate what we are and what we have.
We also talked about the alliance of the spiritual communities and the religious communities that have used our organization's skills and the airwaves here. And there's quite a few people quite a few organizations that use community television to broadcast their message. And we thought about, wonder what that kind of how we could ask them to ask their communities to help support community television as well. And I think that's kind of a natural alliance. It's just another part of our community that we want to strengthen.
The longest running program with the most episodes is a church program on community television, and almost sometimes 50% of the programming that's submitted is religious related. Right. So there's quite a bit of that kind of programming. And if you count the spiritual related, it goes even to a larger number. Yeah, that's very true. Is there anything else that we should address right now? Any other thoughts you have? We're getting close to the end here. I'm not sure exactly how much time I have left. I want to know
about the bill before Congress.
There's the CAP Act, yes. The CAP Act is before Congress. It's an act to change the restrictions in DVCA. The restrictions in DVCA come from the FCC, and there's an act before Congress to loosen those restrictions. However, it's mired in committee, and unless, we were discussing this right before the program, I think unless somehow we can get the religious community behind loosening those purse strings because they want to have their programs still broadcast, it's probably not going to get out of committee in the current Congress. So we're just going to wrap it up here, and I wonder, we have 1 minute, if there's anything in closing that you'd like to say, Lynn?
Well, it's been an interesting organization to come work for, and I've really appreciated it. You know, when you get my vintage, you've seen it all. And I got to tell you, the spirit in here is really good. It's a nice place to come to work. I just want to see it work on to be something my grandkids will experience in their teenage years, and that's what my intent is to do, is work with staff and the board to get us there.
Right, thank you. And how about you, Jennifer?
I would love people to find that ballot and send that in by August 31st. Whatever you decide, we'd love to have just that sense of that the membership is involved and cares and wants to make a difference here, and so please vote.
And the other thing to remember is that on our website, there is a How to Help CTV. Go to our website and click on that link, How to Help. It suggests you write to your county supervisor or city council member. It suggests you write to a representative about the CAP Act like we just discussed. It suggests you contribute. Many ways that you can help, and there's even an example letter there to tell you how to talk to your supervisor or council person. I'd like to thank everyone tonight that was on the show. I'd like to thank Lynn and Jennifer. And I'd like to thank our all-volunteer crew that came in tonight, their Sunday night, to help put this program together. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, and the members of Community TV. And thank you for your support, and I hope you will continue to support us. Good night.